Uptime Kuma is an awesome open source monitoring tool that can help you check all of your services are working as expected. This self-hosted solution offers a great user experience and can track all types of things from your websites, APIs, DNS, and more. When something goes wrong, we can set up notifications to be sent to us via a ton of integrations such as email, Slack, and Discord. And on top of that, we can create our own status pages like this one that you can share with your users to let them know what's going on and if you have any incidents running. Let's take a look at how we can set this up and begin monitoring our websites with this, as well as some of the other cool features that it has. Before we jump into that though, if you like programming tutorials, be sure to subscribe. And if you're interested in a newsletter about building and scaling software from the team here at BetterStack, go ahead and sign up for the Hacking Scale newsletter. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. But now let's look at Uptime Kuma. So to get started, head over to that GitHub page. I'll leave a link to this in the description down below, but as you can see, it's got 55,000 GitHub stars. We scroll down here, we'll get to a how to install section. And what you'll see is there's going to be two methods we can install this. One is going to be using Docker, which we'll be doing. And there's also a non-Docker way if you want that as well, which is simply going to use node and PM2. Now for the Docker way, we're just going to go ahead and copy this command, but it's worth noting that if you want to use Uptime Kuma to monitor your Docker containers, so you can monitor the status, whether they're running and various different things, you will need to bind an additional volume to this. And you can find that in that wiki here. I'll leave a link to this page in the description down below. But all you want to do is add this bit onto your Docker command that you'll run. As I said, I'm not going to be showing this bit today, so I'll leave that bit out. But let's head over to the terminal now to install it. Now, in a terminal, all we have to do is paste in that command we copied earlier. Now, it is worth noting that if you're running your applications on the same machine that you're running this Docker on, and you're only exposing them via localhost, say you just spun up a simple node application like on localhost 3000, you may have to add -- network here and set that equal to host like so. What this does is it just changes the network that the Docker container is on by default to the host one, and that means when you type in something like localhost 3000 on Uptime Kuma, it's going to be referring to your machine's localhost instead. Now, I won't be needing that bit today as I'll be monitoring a site that's already accessible on my network, but it was worth mentioning as I've seen some confusion around Uptime Kuma and localhost. We can go ahead and hit enter on this now, and what it's going to do is it's going to pull in the image if it doesn't already have it, and it's going to go ahead and set up our container with Uptime Kuma in it. Once that command's done, then it should have spun up your container, and you can check that with Docker PS here. What you can see here is I've got that container running now called Uptime Kuma here. It was created 24 seconds ago, and it's been up for 24 seconds. So now we can go ahead and connect to it. And to do that, we can go to localhost 3001 or the IP of your machine. And as it shows you here, it shows you the port that we were using as well, which is 3001. So maybe if you configured it to a different one, all you have to do is go to your IP of the machine and then that port there. So on a browser then, all I've done is I've navigated to the IP of my machine and 3001. In my case, that's ubuntu.lan and then 3001. In your case, if you're on the same machine, it may be localhost 3001 or whatever the IP of that machine is. Now, once you get there, you're going to see this create your admin account. So we can go ahead and do that now. So we can create a name and a password, and this is just going to be so we can set different things up. Once you've done that, hit create, and you'll get to this page that looks like this, and this is the Uptime Kuma dashboard. The first thing we need to do then is create a new monitor. To do that, we can come up here and click add new monitor, and you're going to get a bunch of options to configure. The first one is going to be monitor type. Now, if we're just checking if a website or API is up, HTTPS will be enough, but there's other cool options in here as well, such as TCP port, a simple ping, Docker container, which I showed you the configuration option you'd have to do earlier if you want that bit to work. You can have your DNS here, and the other cool one is the HTTPS keyword check. If you select this, essentially what it's going to do is it's going to go to the URL that you specify, and it's going to look for a keyword in the response. So it's going to look on the HTML of the website, for example, whether something is there, or in the JSON response of an API request, whether a certain keyword is there, and then it will mark the service as down if it doesn't find that one. For us, I'm going to leave this on HTTPS as I'm just going to be checking if a website is up or down. The friendly name, you can give this whatever you want. I'm just going to call this one demo site. And then you'll get the URL of the service that you want to check. For me, mine is simply going to be ubuntu.lan and then 4173, as this is just a website that I have hosted locally. The next option is going to be your heartbeat interval, so how often is it going to be checking that this service is up, and I'm going to leave that on the default of every 60 seconds. We also have the option for retries here. Essentially, if this is set to 0, the second one of these heartbeat fails, it's going to mark the service as down. However, if we set retries to something like 3, for example, it's only going to mark the service as down. If it hits a heartbeat, it fails, and then it's going to retry that heartbeat 3 times based on these options down here. So you have an option such as how often it should try the heartbeat retry. So you can change this from 60 seconds down to 10, for example. So if we have a failure up here, it can then try every 10 seconds to hit that heartbeat for the number of retries you have here, and then mark that service as down if all of those fail. The other one as well is request timeout here. So it's going to time out by default after 48 seconds if it doesn't get anything back in that time frame. You may want to lower this, for example, if you want to mark your service as down if the request takes too long, or if you know a certain API call takes a really long time, you may want to up this value as well. And you also have this resend notification option as well, which essentially if it's down X times in a row, you can get it to resend the notification to you each time that occurs. Down in the advanced options here, we have some cool ones as well, such as certificate expiry notification. So we can get it to warn us if our website certificates are expiring soon. And if you're doing something locally, maybe you just want to ignore the SSL errors, you can go ahead and tick this option here. And you also have upside down mode as well, which is quite a funny one, which essentially is going to flip the status of your service from being down to up. So essentially, if we're checking whether a website's up and it is up, if we had this option ticked, it would technically mark it as down if the site was up. Now, the reason that you'd actually want to use this is maybe you're doing a keyword check, but you want to check that a keyword is there. And if it is there, you want to mark the site as down, as maybe you don't want that keyword to appear on your website. So you could configure this up here to be a keyword check. For example, let's just say we were looking for hello world. And then down here, you can mark this as upside down mode. So if it did find hello world on the page, it would mark the site as down, as maybe that was something you didn't want to appear on the page. We also have other cool options here, such as how many times it's going to go down a redirect, and then the accepted status codes as well. So for a default website, you're just going to leave this on 200 to 299, as that's generally the okay status codes, but you can configure this to whatever your service needs here. Obviously 400 and 500, that's typically a server error, so you may not want that. But again, this is all something that you can configure yourself. The other options we have up here are for the HTTP options. So if you're testing an API, for example, you can change this to whichever method that you want here. You can put some things in the body that you need to send off. So maybe you're testing your API and you need something in the body to be able to get a response back. You can set that there, and you can also set the headers. Lastly, we also have our notification options up here. If you click setup notifications and then notification type, you're going to have more than 70 in here that you can configure, whether it's email, Discord, Slack, and just a load of others. All you need to do is click on the one that you want, and then you can follow the instructions to set that up. I'm not going to be using notifications today, but again, it's going to be really simple to set that up. It will have the instructions here or on that GitHub. With all of that configured, we can go ahead and click save down here, and it's going to run the first check for us. And what you can see is I got a heartbeat back that my site was okay, as it got the status 200 okay. You're going to get this dashboard here that's going to show you the response time of that heartbeat. So for me, it was 10 milliseconds here. You'll see the average response over a 24-hour period, the uptime percentage over that 24-hour period, and also over a 30-day period. And you also get a graph here of the response time. And then down here as well, you can see the status code of the heartbeats. Now, it's actually not going to show you each individual heartbeat. It's only going to show you when the heartbeat changes, essentially. So for us, we got the first 200 okay, but now all of them that are coming in after this, it's not going to show a new message here until maybe we get a failure. Then it will show the failure message, and then once we get it back up and running, it will show the change as a 200 okay again. So I'm going to show you that now by spinning down my website. So I turned off my website here, and as you can see, we got a notification that the site is down, and it got a connection refused here. And you see that the status down here as well has what that error message was there. And the average response time here is obviously red, as that heartbeat came back as a failure, so it didn't have a response time. And you see up here as well that this little node here shows us that the heartbeat has failed. If I spin my website back up now, we can see that the next heartbeat comes back as okay, and you can see we get a nice toast down here for when that status has changed to 200 okay. And if I scroll down here, what you can see as well is we get that new response coming in after that bad heartbeat there, and our website is all back up and running. And you can see that we have this uptime percentage now of our heartbeats. You can see we have a 50% uptime in the 24-hour period, and also a 50% uptime in the 30-day period. Now, it's worth noting at the moment, all of this is only viewable by us as we're logged into the dashboard. If we want this to be public facing so that our users can see it, we need to create a status page. To do that, go to the top of the page here and click status pages here. Once you're on there, we can click new status page. And in here, just fill out the information such as name. So I'm going to call this, let's say, demo status page. And then you can also give this the slug that you want. So this is going to be your URL /status and then /demo here. I'm going to go ahead and click next. Now that we've got this set up, we're going to have a few options to configure what our status page looks like. You can change what the title of the status page is going to be. We can add in a description, and it has markdown syntax supported. You can add in some footer text here, and again, it's going to have that markdown syntax supported. These are useful. Maybe you want to describe what these services are, or in the footer text, maybe you want to put something like your contact email if someone needs to get in touch with you because a service is down or they need help. And we can also see the theme down here. You can change this from being auto to light mode or dark mode. You have the options to show tags. You have this option here to show powered by. So by default, it's going to show powered by Uptime Kuma. You can turn this on and off whether you want it to. And you can also have it to show the certificate expiry. So if you remember, we ticked that option earlier, whether we wanted to see these certificate expiry notifications. You can tick this whether you want this to be public facing or not. And you also see we can configure the domain names down here that we want to check. And then you have the Google Analytics ID as well if you just want to have some analytics on your status page. And lastly, custom CSS is going to allow you to configure how you want your status page to look using CSS. With all of this set up though, we need to add in some monitors. Now you can have multiple monitors to a status page, but for us, as we only had one monitor, we're going to go ahead here and click add monitor and then just add our demo site. And you'll see at the top, it's going to say all systems operational, as this is essentially our website builder. This is what it's going to look like to an end facing user, obviously without some of these options here. And you'll see this is essentially what it's going to look like for the demo site monitor here as well, with these heartbeats here. Once we've done all of this, we can go ahead and click save, and that's going to take you to a page that is going to look like what it's going to look like for an end user, obviously without these buttons up here as we're logged into the admin dashboard. What we can see is it says all systems operational, and it shows us the uptime percentage here, and then also each individual heartbeat as they start to fill out here. Now I'm going to go ahead and spin my site down again so we can see what that looks like. So there we go, I've turned off my website now, and as you can see, it shows that we have degraded service here, and it shows that we've got a red tick here, which means that this site is considered down, and it also shows us our uptime percentage again, and that heartbeat that went wrong there. Now it's worth noting with status pages that they only refresh every 5 minutes if you're on the page itself. You can go ahead and force this manually though by just refreshing the page, and it will go ahead and load in the newest information, and you see it starts that counter again from 5 minutes. Now, the last cool thing we can do with status pages is create an instant, so we can alert people that are going to our status page that we know about what's happening with the sites and that we're looking into it. To do that, you can go to edit status page here, and you can click create instant, and you can just give this a title. So you could say, let's say site down, and let's say I just did a bad git commit like so in the description. And if we hit post here, if I now go to my page, so I click save here, what you see is we'll get this incident at the top, and it's going to have your title, your description, and when that was created. This is a nice way to let a user know that you're looking into the incident and essentially what exactly is going wrong with the service. With that look at the key features of Uptime Kuma, I want to show you our alternative option for a managed service. Self-hosting is great, but if you don't want to or you can't invest the time in managing the server that Uptime Kuma is on or keep up to date with the updates, then BetterStack is a good alternative with a generous free plan to suit your needs as well. A managed service is especially great for a service like monitoring, as it ensures the status page and the monitors aren't reliant on your infrastructure, as if you self-host and there's a major issue, your status pages and monitors could go down too. So over on BetterStack.com, I'll leave a link to this in the description down below. You can go ahead and sign up for a free account. But to quickly go over some of the key features of our Uptime service, what you can see is down here we have multi-location checks. So each HTTP and ping-based incident is verified from at least 3 locations before we alert you. That stops false incidents. We monitor everything, so similar to Uptime Kuma, we can do your APIs, ping, POP3, and a load of other services. And we also have screenshot and error logs. So we're going to record your API's error message that we get back if there has been an issue. And we can also take a screenshot of your website being down so that you know exactly what happened when we tried to visit it. We also have incident management, which is really cool if you're working with a team. Essentially, you can set someone up to be on call, or you can set a team up to be on call. So when an incident does happen, it notifies them first. And then you can have various different escalations. So if they need to escalate that further, that can go down to another team. You can also set it so if they're not responding to that incident, that it can be escalated further after a certain amount of time. And as you can see here, we have unlimited voice call, and we have SMS, email, Slack, Teams, and push notifications as well. And lastly, the other thing that we'll be setting up in this video, as you can see here, is the status page. And you can have this status page set up to status.yourdomain.com. So let's go ahead and set this up. So as I said, all you need to do is sign up for a free account and go ahead and sign in. Once you're signed in, you should see a page that looks like this. If you don't, just click Uptime here and then Monitors. And we go ahead and create our first monitor. Let's hit Create Monitor here. And we can get it to alert us when, for example, the URL becomes unavailable. If it doesn't contain a keyword, so we have that keyword matching like we had on Uptime Kuma. You have it if the URL does contain a keyword, and a load of other options as well with that TCP, UDP, and a load of other things. Another really cool option we have as well is playwright scenarios. So you can actually write your own custom playwright script, so it can run that script on the website. And if it fails, we can go ahead and be alerted. So you can do some really cool custom configuration with that option there. We're going to be leaving this on if the URL becomes unavailable, as we just want to check a simple website. Next, all you need to do is put in the URL that you want to monitor. For me, I'm going to put in this URL as that's my site. So I can go ahead and spin that down to show you what that looks like later. And then you can set up this on-call escalation as well, which is set up rules for who's going to be notified, how and when an incident occurs. So you can set this up to be push notifications, send an email, send SMS. I'm going to leave this on send an email. And as you can see, it can say notify the entire team as a last resort option. So if someone doesn't see that email or they haven't responded to the email, you can go ahead and notify everyone. Alternatively as well, you can set up a load of different escalation policies for the various teams that it should step through if something like that does occur. As you can see here, if the on-call person doesn't acknowledge the incident within 3 minutes, alert all other team members, and you can customize this here as well. In the advanced setting, we have a couple core options in here to check out as well. One of them is this recovery period. So this is how long the monitor must be up to automatically mark an incident as resolved. So if we do get an incident, if we then resolve this incident, what this recovery period is going to do is say after 3 minutes, if all of the checks have come in okay, it can go ahead and automatically mark that incident as resolved and that everything is working fine. Next one is just going to be your check frequency, so how often you want this to be checked. Other cool options as well is obviously we can customize our SSL verification. We can change the request parameters. This is useful if we're doing an API request, for example. We can change the headers, the authentication. We can even set up maintenance windows as well. If you know your server's going to go down at a specific time, maybe you have it to auto restart, you can go ahead and set that as a maintenance window. And then we also have the regions here. So what locations you want to check your website from. And by default, it's going to be checking them from all of these locations to make sure that if each one of these comes back as okay, your site's okay. And if all of them come back as down, it's down. As I said earlier, this stops false incidents. Once all of this is done, we can go ahead and click Create Monitor. There we go, it's done its first check, and as you can see, my site is currently up, and it checked it 30 seconds ago there. And again, we can see our response times, and what you can change here is you can change where that server is, so you can see your response times from North America, Asia, Australia. This is obviously really useful if your server is hosted in Europe, for example, and you just want to see the different host times from different areas. We also can come down here, and you can see the availability for different periods, so the last 7 days, 30 days, 365, and you can customize this as well. This is a really nice dashboard to see various things. Now, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the website so we can see what an incident looks like. And there we go, with my website down, you can see that we've now got a notification that it's down. We've got an incident. I got an email saying it's down as well. And if we click incidents here, we see that we have one. And we can go ahead and escalate this. Maybe we need to notify more people, or we can acknowledge this. And this is going to prevent it from alerting people, so you can let them know that you are on this incident. I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge this, as we can go ahead and fix this. I'll go ahead and spin up my website. Now that my website is back up, what you'll see is this is going to change to a validating stage. Essentially what this means is we did get a ping back that is now okay because my website is up, but this is just going to validate the recovery. That's based on the option that I showed you earlier. So after 3 minutes, this would auto mark itself as resolved. But I can go ahead and tick resolve here as well, as I know that's recovered. If you go back to our monitor here, you can see it's got the uptime here. You can see our incident report here on this status. And then we can also see our uptime and availability percentages as well. Now, the last thing you'll want to set up, of course, is the public-facing status page. To do that, all you need to do is go to Status Pages and create a status page. You're going to want to give this a company name, and then you can also have a subdomain here. This is obviously going to have to be unique, but what you can do as well is you can configure a custom domain below. So I'm just going to leave this as the defaults for now. As you can see, it's going to have a few links and URLs. Essentially, what this is going to be is if we have a logo on our custom status page, where do you want that to redirect to? So you can just set that to the URL of your website, for example. Then you can also have a get in touch URL. As you can see here, you can use mail to support as well if you want to have a get in touch button. And if we can say we can leave that blank if we don't want that button there. You can then have some personalization, so you can choose the modern look, vertical layout, horizontal layout, or you can have a classic look. And again, we can have the system, light version or dark version. I'm going to set this to system. And then you can drag and drop your custom logo here as well. Down in custom domain, this is where you would configure this if you had a custom domain. I don't, so I'm just going to ignore this bit. We have a couple cool options in the advanced settings as well. As you can see here, we can share some significant news. So you can pin some news to the top of the status page here using Markdown in here. You can change the look and feel with CSS and JavaScript. This example here is loading in a plausible script. You can see you can change the minimum incident length here. So maybe you don't want to show the incidents that were less than 30 seconds long, and you can change that here. You can add in your analytics ID here. You can replace the top navigation links. We can have the status history, so how long you want to show that for. You can have a dedicated Twitter account for sharing your status updates here. You can tick whether you want search engines to be able to index your page. You can have white labeling, so do you want to remove all of the BetterStack branding, so you can remove that powered by BetterStack. You can subscribe to status updates, so you can let status page visitors receive email updates for new incidents. We have automatic reports, so we can generate an automatic report when your service goes down. We can embed the announcement into your site as well, so you can let your customers know about ongoing incidents directly in your product. So you can get a nice little embed script here to add that to your page. You can have the status page embedded as well. You can have an embeddable badge. Password protection, IP address, allow listing, and then status page access here. So a load of options we can use for status pages. I'm going to leave them all as default and click Save Changes here. Once you've configured those settings here, you're going to want to go to structure here. And this is where we're going to add our monitors and the heartbeats that we want to add to our status page. If we click add section here, I'm just going to leave that as new section. You can obviously call this whatever you want for the header. And we go ahead and add a resource here. I'm going to add the monitor that we created earlier. So that's going to be this one here. I can go ahead and click save changes. Now that we've done that, I can go to my status page now. And on my status page, you can see we have a nice looking status page. It says all services are online. It has our uptime percentage. It has the operational, and it has all of those various different heartbeats as well. You can see if we click maintenance as well, you can see various different information, whether we've set it to maintenance mode. And you can also see a list of previous incidents. If we've marked something as an instance and we put anything there, the user can go here and see what's occurred previously. As you can see with this status page, we're currently up as the moment as all services are online. I'll go ahead and spin down my website so we can see what that looks like. And there we go. Now with my website down, you can see that some services are down. We have downtime and our uptime percentage is here. So there we go. That was a look at a way to self-host your monitors and status pages using Uptime Kuma, and then a look at our alternative if you don't want to deal with self-hosting and you want some of the extra cool features like screenshotting, multi-location checks, incident management, and more. If you want to watch a video on how to set up a Redis cache with Node, go ahead and click here. And if you want to watch the video YouTube recommends, click this one. As always, please subscribe and thank you very much for watching.